The jungle was never meant for her. The tall trees loomed like towering judges, their branches stretching across the sky to block out the light of hope. Insects buzzed in unseen swarms, their sound sharp and relentless, and every rustle in the undergrowth carried the threat of fangs or claws. Aisha stood there, barefoot on the damp earth, the cold gnawing at her skin as though the forest itself wanted to devour her. She pressed her trembling hands over her swollen belly, her heart shattering in her chest with the realization that the man she had once trusted with her life had left her here to die. She had once been cherished, adorned in silk gowns and golden jewelry, living in palaces of glass and marble. Now, stripped of everything but her will to live, she was alone, abandoned, and betrayed. Her husband, Armin, had not always been this cruel. Or perhaps, she thought bitterly, he had always been this way, and she had simply been too blinded by love to see the truth. She remembered their first meeting as if it were yesterday. She was a small-town girl, simple in her dreams, her heart innocent and wide open. When Armin had arrived in her world, it was as though the sun itself had descended. His wealth dazzled everyone, but it was his words, those honey-sweet promises of devotion, that pierced her soul. He told her she was different, that she wasn't like the shallow women chasing his fortune. He said she was the anchor to his storm, the calm he needed in his chaotic world of business and power. And she, young and naive, believed him. Their wedding was a spectacle the town had never seen. Flowers rained from the sky, musicians played until dawn, and Aisha walked into his mansion as if she were walking into a dream. The early days of their marriage were filled with laughter, candlelit dinners, and whispered plans for the future. She thought she had found her forever, the kind of love women prayed for, the kind of marriage built not just on wealth but on soul-deep connection. But reality is cruel in its timing. The fairy tale began to fray at the edges almost as soon as it was written. Aisha noticed the change in him slowly, like a storm gathering over calm seas. At first, it was just late nights at the office. Then came the locked phone, the sudden business trips, the unfamiliar perfume clinging to his clothes, and the vacant look in his eyes when he sat across from her at dinner. She tried to ignore it, convincing herself it was the pressure of his empire, the weight of responsibility. But in her heart, she knew. A woman always knows when love begins to slip away. When she found out she was pregnant, hope surged inside her. She thought this child would bring them back together, that the sight of a tiny hand gripping his finger would soften him, that the sound of laughter would heal the distance. She began to dream again. She decorated the nursery, hummed lullabies to her growing belly, and imagined Armin holding their baby with pride. But instead of joy, she was met with coldness. Her news was met with a distracted nod, his gaze already somewhere else, on someone else. The distance between them grew into a canyon. The truth revealed itself in sharp fragments. A woman, glamorous and cunning, had stolen his heart, or perhaps his ambition. This mistress of his fed his ego, whispered in his ear that he deserved excitement, that his wife was weak, a burden, trapped in the prison of motherhood. The words sank deep, poisoning what little love remained. Soon, Aisha was not a partner but an inconvenience, her presence mocked, her pregnancy seen as a chain rather than a gift. She was left to cradle her belly alone, tears soaking her pillows while the man who vowed to protect her lost himself in another's arms. The breaking point came. Without warning, he told her they were going away for a night, under the pretense of a surprise. She clung to that hope, praying it was his way of mending what had been broken. Dressed simply, her heart filled with fragile expectation, she followed him as his car cut through endless roads until the city lights faded into wilderness. The forest loomed ahead, its vastness intimidating, its silence unsettling. When the car stopped, she stepped out, confused but still hopeful. Then came his words, cold, sharp, final. He told her she was a burden, that his life belonged to someone else now, that she and the child she carried had no place in his world. Before she could even comprehend, the car door slammed, the engine roared, and the red glow of his taillights disappeared into the darkness. The silence that followed was the loudest she had ever known. Alone, pregnant, defenseless in a jungle she had never seen before, Aisha felt the earth beneath her crumble. Her cries pierced the night, but only the trees bore witness. She collapsed onto the damp ground, clutching her belly, whispering apologies to the innocent life within her. She could not let fear consume her. She had to fight, for her child if not for herself. The jungle tested her in every possible way. Thorns tore at her clothes and skin as she stumbled forward. Hunger gnawed at her insides until she felt faint, and thirst clawed at her throat like fire. The night was alive with sinister sounds, the howl of distant beasts, the hiss of snakes sliding unseen, the screech of owls overhead. Her body trembled, but she pressed on. Each step was agony, but each step was also survival. She drank from muddy streams, picked fruits from the ground, prayed the ones she ate were safe. She curled under giant leaves when rain poured, her body shivering as she shielded her belly with her arms. Days blurred into nights, and nights into days. Her body weakened, her once glowing face pale and hollow. Yet something deeper than flesh pushed her onward, the fierce, unyielding strength of a mother's love. Every time she thought she would collapse and never rise again, she touched her belly and felt a faint kick. That small reminder gave her fire, whispering to her that she was not alone, that she had a reason to survive. The forest tried to break her, but it also began to teach her. She learned to follow the sound of running water, to use sticks to keep snakes away, to rest when her legs gave out, and to rise again with the dawn. Her clothes became tattered, her hair matted, her skin bruised, but her spirit, though scarred, refused to surrender. And then, just when despair was ready to claim her, a miracle appeared. Through the trees, faint smoke curled into the sky. Hope surged within her weak body, and with the last strength she could summon, she staggered toward it. There, on the edge of the jungle, was a small village, humble yet alive with warmth. Men and women, strangers to her, rushed forward, their faces etched with concern. They lifted her frail body, carried her into their huts, and offered her water, food, and care. For the first time since the night of her abandonment, she felt human again. Aisha had survived the jungle, but her journey was only beginning. She did not yet know that what awaited her in this simple village would become the foundation of her rebirth, the soil where the seeds of her strength would grow.